Hi there once again and welcome to another Expresso mechanic tutorial, and this is episode 10 in the series Expresso Nuts and Bolts. In this one we're going to be looking at how we can drive what we've got on the screen here. We won't necessarily be looking too much at building this from scratch, but it's going to be about how we're driving this. And the node that we're going to be particularly interested in here is the track node, which is one I've never actually used before, but I've recently discovered that it's actually quite a useful little node. Anyway, that's what we're going to be about in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this happen. Let's just take a quick look at what we've got on the screen. So it's more about the way this is all set up than anything. That's the key thing is how it's grouped into its nulls and stuff like that. But we'll just take a quick look at what we've got. So the contraption at the bottom here started life as a simple cylinder. I gave it 8 rotation segments, 2 height segments, made it editable, and then moved the ring of edges at the center of the object up to the top, or close to the top. I then did an inset on the 2 polygons that are directly opposite each other, which are the roots for the 2 arms. And then it was simply a matrix extrude to turn this through 90 degrees. I did another inset, and this time in a minus direction, so that it was slightly stepped here. All I did then was just do another extrude in polygons here. I just kept in polygons and did another extrude. That gave me a cube sitting on top of the arm. And then it was a case of selecting the 2 polygons facing each other along the x-axis. As we can see here, we're facing along the x-axis. So I took the 2 polygons opposite each other on both sides, extruded those out as well, and then extruded the top polygons that were on the cubes that resulted from doing that previous extrusion. And then just extruded them up to make these 2 prongs here that are going to grab a hold of the cylinder. And that was all I did with that. And then I just put the thing into a subdivision surface, as you can see here. So if we just do that, you can see what I've got here. That's how it looks without the subdivision surface. So quite a straightforward thing that I've created there. And then I just did a little bit of tensioning around the top and the bottom just to make that a little bit tighter around there, and left everything else as it was. The whole shebang is grouped into a null. And if we look at the null, we can see that I've got it set up as a diamond, and it's basically, you can see the points of the diamond are right in the middle of these 2 prongs. And of course, that's where we want to be able to pick up the cylinder here as the thing moves up and down. So that's why I've set that up like that. And then finally, all of this is grouped into another null, which is at the same height as the cylinder. So that's important. So this is actually 50 units, this null is 50 units below the base null here, the parent null, the overall parent null. So that's important to set that up like that. And then the cylinder, I've just simply grouped that into another null so that it's at ground zero there. I mean, that null is 100 units above 0 from the world axes, and this is now at 0 because it's grouped directly into that null. So that's important. Right, that's the setup for it. And then we can move on from here and think about how we're going to make this actually move. We'll grab a hold of another null, call it Expresso, give it an Expresso tag, and we've got the editor open and we're ready to start work. The first node we're actually going to need is, so look, we just go into there, that's it. First node we're going to need is a time node. We'll place this somewhere here. And then we're going to need the all-important track node, which is in the general menu here. So it's down at the bottom beneath the time. So track node, bring one of those in. At the moment it's got a yellow top and it's got none in the middle of it. Now let's just take a quick look at what we've got here. So at the input stage we've got time, which is grayed out, and at the output stage we've got value, which is grayed out. So you can't add anything to this node or take anything away. It just is what it is. Now, in order to make this work, we've actually got to do some work with the animation before we can go any further, because we need a track from the actual dope sheet to be placed in here. That's the way this works. So what we're going to do is animate the null that contains our object for moving the cylinder up and down. We're interested in the position Y, which is currently -50, so we're at frame 0 and we can record that there. Move our timeline through to 45. We'll just leave it set up at 90 frames. That's fine for what we've got. And we'll set this at 50. So over 45 frames, we're going to move through 100 units, so we can record that there. And then we can just head to the end, just drag this over to 90, set this back to -50 and record once again. And if we go back to the beginning and play, we've got the motion that we want, which is good. We can just zoom out a little bit so that we can see everything again now. Just give that a quick play. Yep, that's fine. So we can see everything and we're okay. Moving on from here then, we need to get something to drag into here. So what we need to do is come to our window here, open the timeline dope sheet, and we've got position Y under our null here and under positions. If we select position Y, we can just drag that and drop it into our track node. And we can now see that we've got position Y and our yellow top has disappeared. And that's all we need to do. And we can close up the dope sheet window and simply plumb the time into the time input on the track node. So we're underway. If we get a result node, we can just see what's going on here. So let's just get one of those and we'll connect that just temporarily to here. So we can see that at 0, and we're using a time node as, with the time as opposed to frames, but we can see that at time position 0, we're getting -50, which is exactly what we should get. And if we just step through a little bit, we can see that we're getting changes in the result node as we move along our timeline, which is exactly what we'd expect. So you can think of this track node as being similar to a range mapper that's time-based. It's not as versatile as the range mapper, but it does work in a similar way. It maps the actual position Y of, well, in this case, of course, it could be the position X, position Z, it could be another parameter entirely. But at this moment in time, no pun intended, we're mapping the position Y to the current time. And that's what's happening here. So we're getting the time at the input stage, and at the output stage, we get the position Y of whatever time we're actually working with. So it's quite a useful little node in that respect. But anyway, let's move on from here and take things to where we need to go. So what we need next are 2 compare nodes. So we'll bring one of those in and copy. And what we're going to do here is also add a frame port to the time node. Just move that up to the top if I can. That's better. Okay, so that's ready to go. And what we'll do is connect our frame output to our input 1s. So we've got those 2 set up so far. This one needs to be greater than or equal to in the function. So greater than or equal to in there. And we're going to say we've got 45 frames here. What we want to do is just move through and let's just see what we're going to get. So we're moving through. We get to this position. That's the point at which we want the cylinder here to be picked up by our contraption here and moved up and down. So we're on frame 22. So we can say in our compare greater than or equal to, and we'll say 22. And at that point, we want the cylinder to be given this value. So that's fine. We've got the first one set up. Now, if we move through, we're going to go past 45 and then come back. And we set that up there. So 67 is the next one. So if we say less than or equal to 67, that will give us our next compare set up correctly. And then all we need to do is get a bool. So coming to bool, it can be left as an AND because that's what we want. So we can plumb these 2 in accordingly. So if we're between frames 22 and frames 67, that will mean our bool will be satisfied and we'll get a 1 at the output. We can then open the window a little bit further so we can see what we're doing. Get a condition node. Plumb our output from the bool into the switch. Like that. We can leave input 1, or input 2 I should say, as 0. And input 3 will take this value that's coming out here. We can get rid of that result now. We can take that out there. And then all we need to do to finish this off is bring in the cylinder, and in the coordinates we can come down to transform position, position Y. Connect that up there, and you can see that it's already moved slightly, which is what it needs to do. And then we'll just rewind back to 0, and now let's see what happens. Straight away we can see that that's working perfectly. So there you go. It's really quite simple to set it up. And if we just open that again and have a quick look at what we've got, I mean, we haven't got that many nodes there really, just a handful of nodes. And all we're doing, as I say, we take the time in here and we output the position at whatever the position is at whatever time is coming in. We've got our frames here. We're checking to see if we're between frames 22 and frame 67. And if we are, then we want this position here that's coming out here passed to the cylinder. At all other times we want the cylinder to remain at its 0 position. That's all we're doing. So it's quite a simple setup to actually get this to work. And as I say, this is very similar in the way that it works to a range mapper. It's just not as complicated and not as versatile. But nonetheless, it's a useful little node. So if you've got anything that needs to happen at a specific time in your animation, it's quite a useful node to use in order to make that happen. Because that's, you know, really quite a nice little piece of animation. There's nothing complicated about it, maybe, but it's quite a nice little piece of animation and very, very easy to set up. But anyway, that's what I wanted to show you in this tutorial. So, as always, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, then please give the video a like, and if you haven't already, then please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and of course, ring the bell. And wherever you happen to be on social media, then please share this video, because all this good stuff really does help the channel keep on moving in the right direction. But anyway, hopefully you've learned something here that you can use in some of your projects. Have a play around with it and see what you can come up with. But that just about brings the curtain down on this one, so I'll see you very soon on the next tutorial.